All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Global Reality. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. This is the Tuesday, March 21st, 2017 edition of the broadcast. Thank you very much again for being here with us today for the show. Lots of different variety of things to talk about, and as per usual, and I'll be expanding on some stuff I talked about in the last broadcast as well for you here, and some updated information regarding what we talked about, some of the stuff we talked about on the last broadcast. And boy, oh boy, that last one was last show was quite a doozy. In fact, I did a whole kind of string of shows there. Well, the last 5 or 6, all the shows have been really good. I've I try to do that sometimes, especially when I'm busy working on other projects like I am now. And you have to, if you haven't been listening for very long, a lot of people don't understand. When I get in filmmaking mode, in full blown filmmaking mode, I tend to have less radio shows and whatnot. So I'm going to be doing as many shows as I possibly can this week. I put an update out on Facebook last night, but a lot of our listeners not all of them are on Facebook, and that's the primary way we use social media to update you on what we're doing and promote stuff and things like that. So if you haven't added our pages, we have lots of there's actually 4 different Facebook pages associated with my work. The Global Reality Radio Network page, the Josh Reeves Filmmaker Talk Show Host Explorer page, the Lost Secrets of Ancient America page, and the Let There Be Rocks page. And so those are the main ones for the network, are the Global Reality Radio Network page and the Josh Reeves Filmmaker page. So you can go and add those there if you haven't already. And also the update that I put on there last night, which I'm going to be telling you about now anyway. So like I said, not everybody has the social media. So that's the only one I use as far as I go. I don't go into the fucking Twitter idiot universe or any of that. You got to understand, I was the last holdout for social media. I mean, I didn't, I was the last holdout on pretty much all of this stuff. It wasn't until somebody said, well, you got to use that to promote stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. Then got on Facebook doing that. But anyway, I'm slammed busy working on, as per usual, I never really ever have one project going. I always have multiple projects going at once, because that's just the best way for me to work. But I talked about on the last show, I discussed extensively discussed the free zone and free zoners in regards to Scientology. It's interesting because I mentioned some of that info, same info back in October. And it was like crickets. Nobody really even responded. I repeated a lot of that same info again in the last broadcast, and for some reason, it set fucking people on fire. And it was some stuff I'd already talked about and said on the show before, but caught a lot more people's attention the last go round, I suppose. But that isn't. It was one of the October shows, I believe it was. And so if you didn't hear that original broadcast, it was kind of a strange, it always is. It's always a strange, synchronistic way that I find out about things I didn't know about that ended up being some of the most important pieces of information. And it's always happened like that. I mean, even from the very beginning, we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. In September, it'll be 10 years, the 10-year anniversary of this radio broadcast, the Global Reality. And just even going back to that, it was just I'm looking back on all that's occurred in my own progression in all of this, because when I started this show, I mean, from the day I started the show, I was still pretty much what you would consider just back then. I was just a mainline truther, really. I really took everything for what, I thought it was pretty much like everybody else does. And then within 2 or 3 days of doing the show, the very first week of shows that I'm doing, I have Peter Dall Scott on, and he tells me about the Council for National Policy. I go and start researching it and finding out all these, all of a sudden I find all these members, current past members, are all guests on Alex Jones' show, and it just immediately got that stinking feeling in my stomach again, knowing, oh crap, as soon as I discovered it, I knew that this was going to be something big, and it was probably going to be something I didn't have any idea it'd become what it has. But again, it was one of those accidental things, and I had, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, maybe not that long. Yeah, it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, probably 2011, 2012, which I found out this book came out in 2011, so it had to have been not very long after it came out. But I found this book in a half-price books store, and it was weird. It was kind of synchronistic how I saw this book, because that was not too long after I had done some of the Zachariah Sitchin readings on air and stuff, and done the audiobook readings and stuff of that. So I kind of had that stuff fresh on my mind, and I just walking past a rack, and there's this book sticking out that said Naboo Speaks. And of course, Naboo is an Anunnaki and stuff. So I got this book, and I was like, I'll pick this up, this might be something good to read on the air at some point. So I got this book, and I didn't think anything of. I really didn't remember that I even had it. I had it in my books and stuff, and I moved, and then I moved again. And so when I got into my new studio back in September, I was pulling all my books out, and then I found that book. I hadn't seen it in many years. I was thinking, well, I should read this. And I started kind of flipping through it. I'd gotten ready to read it, and I started flipping through it, and I started reading into this guy. It's written by some guy named, I believe his name's Josh Free, or Josh Freeman, maybe even. Anyway, I'm trying to find this. Josh Free, I think is his name. Joshua Free, Free. And anyway, all this stuff, it basically, it's like, it's supposedly channeled information. And I started reading through it, and there was stuff in there that sounded like Scientology. And anyway, I started going and reading about this guy. And it mentioned all these different groups that he was associated with, from Freemasons, Illuminati. It's at Freemasons, Illuminati, OTO, all these different groups. And then it said Scientology, parentheses, free zone. And that's when I was like, well, what's this free zone thing? And that was, of course, what led me to finding that. And finding out about, because I was like, well, what's this free zone thing? And so I start researching. And here's a guy who's all into Crowley, and he made all these predictions about stuff. I mean, it was just right down the middle of it sounded very similar to some of the other stuff I'd been researching regarding Scientology and some of these supposed truthers. So I looked this guy up, and I'm so glad I didn't read that book on air before doing some research. And I found the page again that I'd found. It says, Joshua Free began participating in his planetary mission by receiving unofficial personal apprenticeships from individual mentors who were themselves members, acting or pre-existing, of the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, Freemasons, Catholic mystics, Christian Gnostics, Buddhist monks, free zoners, parentheses, Scientology. Now, see, so I got it the other way around. Okay. The Dragon Court, the Dragon Society, the Theosophical Society, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the OTO, and the Argentinium Astrum, which is a Crowley organization, among others. At the age of 12, Joshua Free was officially initiated into the Fairlight Druid initiation based on the work of Douglas Monroe, and then began leading his own Druid-style organization at 13. The following year, he was installed to be the third degree of Celtic Wicca. In the mid-1990s, he was even heralded the youngest initiate to join the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids, a large international organization based in England with the New Age Druidic authors frequently cite. Although he's best known for his work on the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, and the Babylonian tradition, for the Mardukites, yeah, that was the other group. That's who was this. It talked about this book was written by the Mardukites. Anyway, but that that discovery of that rediscovery of me having that book and then thinking about reading it and then finding out, researching this guy, reading some of this stuff, going, wait a minute, some of this stuff, it just didn't sound right reading it. It sounded like, programming, like he was using this alleged Anunnaki channeling session or whatever that he claims he channeled from the Anunnaki to pitch things that sound like it was, agenda based. So that's when I found that's how I first found out about the free zone thing. I was listing all of his associations, which is virtually every fucking secret society you can name. Pretty much, this guy's been a part of and been actively working in since he was fucking 13. And again, one of the prominent ones there, free zoners. Again, you see the connections to the Anunnaki stuff, all the way through this. I had, gosh, I don't even know if I can even say this or not. I got contacted by a very well-known researcher. Not somebody I've ever interviewed or talked to or anything else like that, but somebody who's been around for a very long time. Had sent me an email a few years ago basically saying that I guess at one time this person knew Zecharia Sitchin when he was alive, and that Zecharia Sitchin told this person that he basically got all the stuff that he got, that he based all of his writings on, all of his stuff on, he was influenced and got that stuff and the influence to write about the Anunnaki and the Sumerians and do all the right of the books. Initially, his initial inspiration, where he got a lot of the ideas that he put in his books, came, according to this person, directly from Scientology. Now that again, when you watch my newest film, The Spellcasters, all that becomes clear and becomes as to why, because that's the whole thing that people have never been able to figure out. There's been people who've gone all the way up to the top of Scientology and spend all this money, and then they get to, and then they find out, and they're like, wait a minute, that's it? We're promised all these magical powers and stuff, and you get up there, and it's basically, the story of the Anunnaki and whatnot. And, I'm doing my best to make people, it's very difficult to make people understand this stuff. It's very difficult for me to understand it and wrap my mind around it, I feel like I've got more of a grasp on it now than I've had ever. But, the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, all of this stuff, and, look, it's just like UFOs and extraterrestrials and whatever else. I'm certainly not denying the existence of those things, and I'm certainly not denying the validity of at least some of the information pertaining to, what's been written in the ancient Sumerian texts and whatnot. But the fact of the matter is, and I remember saying this 7, 8, 9 years ago and getting laughed at because people just weren't there yet. I've been so far ahead of the curve. This is absolutely not bragging. This is just fact. I've been so far ahead of the curve of everybody else in terms of this information, even more than I even realized for so long, that sometimes some of the stuff that I find out and put out, it's just before its time. And then it takes people a while to catch up with it. That certainly happened with the Council for National Policy stuff. I was about 3-4 years earlier than anybody wanted to, with that stuff, than when anybody wanted it. But now, this stuff, it's just mind blowing. It's hard, it's very difficult for people to wrap their minds around. But the fact of the matter is, everything in the conspiracy realm and all of the ancient alien stuff and all of it's all been designed, again, as I got laughed at many years ago. I've been saying for many years, even before I was really doing hardcore research into Scientology, I've said for many years that I believed that Scientology will be the world religion that people have talked about. People for years have talked about world government and that whole thing, and the one world system and one world religion, but nobody's ever really nailed it down to Scientology because they're looking at everything else. The reason Scientology is going to be the world religion, because it ties right in line with the staged alien invasion scenario that I've been documenting and covering since day one of this broadcast. I've done shows on everything from Blue Beam to everything else. And it's clear. All of this stuff is just so much clearer to me now. I finally get it. And I have to say, I was duped. We were all duped at some point with this stuff. I was duped by some of this stuff as well. They have been running when you watch Spellcasters, it comes up. There's a reason why all that stuff happened in 1947. From Roswell. It's not a coincidence that Roswell and and MK Ultra and Scientology and the UN, coming into the fold, and all these things happened simultaneously. And then, of course, UFO mania, and then Kennedy, and the whole beginning rising of these conspiracy movements that have been controlled and hijacked in order to build a backstory and a narrative decades in advance for something that they're going to later roll out. Because when they pull off the whatever scenario they end up doing with this staged alien invasion thing, like Warner von Braun talked about, first the threat would be communism, then third world crazies, then asteroids, and then aliens, and they would tell us that these non-hostile aliens that actually want to help humans, which would then, of course, put the power structure in jeopardy because, they would no longer be able to enslave us. That's the biggest threat to the power structure, really. If you want to boil it down to it, if you want to just put it in theoretical terms and just say, okay, let's just fucking spitball here. What would be the biggest thing that these elite rulers would be afraid of happening to them, or to their power structure they want to keep going indefinitely in their enslavement system? The main threat to that, really, when you think about it, would be some very powerful extraterrestrial force that came in by force not to harm us, but to actually help us, which would then be the media and the powers that be would then spin towards, no, they're liars. They really want to kill us and eat our brains and wipe us out and everything else. So we need to band humanity against them and fight off these threats to our way of life and the threat to humanity and the rest of this stuff. There's a show on that comes on. You guys watch that show Colony? I started watching it the first season last year on the suggestion of one of our listeners, and then I started watching this season as well. I did not knowing that I didn't know until this year that, because there's just a lot of stuff. You never know where it's going. I recently found out it was done by the same people that did that show Lost, which now gives me a lot more indication of where they're going with the show. And I think that's where they're going with it. I could be wrong. We'll see. It's just, they've never even shown you what these aliens look like up to this point. And to me, I think that's what it is. I mean, they've gotten you at this point thinking that this is an, standard alien invasion thing, standard, human population culling and standard, using humans for resources, blah, blah, whatever it may be. But I think there's something more going on with this show, in my opinion. And I think that's the way they're going to end up spinning it, is that, this group by force is trying to help Earthlings. And I think that would be the biggest threat to the power structure, is some, benevolent alien, very powerful, very advanced alien race recognizing our enslavement, recognizing what's going on down here, and wanting to put an end to it. Boy, you could bet your bottom dollar they would do anything to keep that from happening. Absolutely, they would. And so whenever they get ready to launch this staged alien invasion scenario, once this happens, and this is what I've been talking about for years with phony disclosure and all this, don't believe the hype on this disclosure shit where people are supposed, it's all phony controlled disclosure. And what it's about, ladies and gentlemen, beyond any shadow of a doubt, is once they do their phony full rollout, and I believe they're getting ready to, and I believe they've been slowly acclimating us to this for decades. They're ramping it up even more. Once they do that and they confirm the existence, and I think that with these, new stuff that they've, new planets supposedly, I think is all a part of that. In fact, I've got a story here somewhere. I don't know if I'll have time to get to it today or not, but I've got a story in my stack here somewhere. I'll get to it at some point soon, where it talks about, because we've talked about many, many times here, the many, we won't get into them all, but, the many voluminous examples there are out there of what people call predictive programming, or whatever you want to call it, foreshadowing of events, fictionalizing future events in fiction so that later when those events happen, people just say, oh, well, yeah, that you saw that on a TV show, or this happened on, And I'm trying to, that's why I'm kind of stopping here. I'm trying to find this article. It would be better if I probably just read the article, but I don't know if I can find it. But anyway, the TRAPPIST star systems, or whatever it is, the planets, the Earth-like planets in the Goldilocks zone. It's come out now that this exact scenario has already been previously played out in a video game. And it doesn't sound nearly as impressive me just saying it, and I'm trying to find the articles here. They're just taking forever to load. There it is. NASA's TRAPPIST-1 discoveries were predicted by a video game. Way to steal NASA's thunder, video games. The entire internet is still buzzing about the discovery of 7 Earth-sized planets in a nearby star system. It's only about 40 light years, or 235 trillion miles away in galactic terms. That's pretty much right next door. Unfortunately for NASA, Elite Dangerous got there first. The exploration-focused game, which has often been described as Grand Theft Auto in space, sets players loose in a recreation of our Milky Way galaxy. From the cockpit of their starships, players are free to mine, trade, and do battle and find cool stuff as they please. Notice how that's one of the things you can do is mine these planets. That's interesting. For unobserved star systems, which until recently included TRAPPIST-1, the game's Stellar Forge engine randomly generates celestial bodies using existing data and what we know about the physical realities of outer space as the basis. As it happens, there's a star system in Elite Dangerous in roughly the same location as TRAPPIST-1. More than that, said system includes 7 terrestrial worlds orbiting a brown dwarf, which is only a little bit smaller than the M8 star at the heart of the actual system. So, pretty interesting that they, again, this is how they always put this stuff in things before the actual discoveries, and isn't that, and then they always play it off, it's just a big coincidence. That's what they said about the Lone Gunman pilot, the spinoff from the X-Files. And in that very first pilot episode, you had, it was like 9 months, 11 months, almost a year before 9/11, you had, this plot of governments needing to have terror attacks because the weapons industry is down. So, and the guy says, but fly a fully loaded 747 in the middle of Manhattan and you'll have all these dictators wanting to take responsibility. And that's what they do. The last minute, the lone gunmen keep a hijacked airliner from being flown into the World Trade Centers. They pull up at the last minute. But the whole plot revolves around, them flying these hijacked airliners by remote control into buildings so that they can blame it on terrorists to have more war and sell weapons. And literally, there are people still to this day that will just write that off as coincidence. So these, all of this planning that's been going on, what essentially they're going to do is when the phony disclosure happens and they finally verify that they know and have known about the existence of extraterrestrials, it's going to immediately turn a lot of foundations of a lot of things on their heads, and this is what they've been trying to stave off for so many years. They've known the inevitability of this has been coming for quite some time, but they have been orchestrating and stage managing this whole thing so that they can benefit and use it to the benefit of the world system and use it for the benefit of the further enslavement of mankind. That's what it's all about. And when everybody's running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and everybody realizes that all the religions they've been following have been wrong, and it's going to become very apparent very quickly in light of this new information concerning the knowledge of the existence of extraterrestrials, people are going to go running, ladies and gentlemen, running to Scientology in droves, because they will at that point be the only religion on the planet that got it all right. And that's what all of this Zecharia Sitchin stuff and the Anunnaki stuff and the ancient alien stuff and the movies and the comic book movies, just everything, all this stuff, all these years has all sci-fi, all of it. All of this stuff has been about creating this mindset and this belief system so that when the day comes, ladies and gentlemen, this is why, again, this is what I've been telling you about of why they have been allowing, when they didn't allow for many years, That's why you didn't used to hear. Why do you think all of a sudden over the past couple of years you started hearing? And I've seen this coming, folks. I mean, I started prepping the spellcasters and working on that even before this current controlled attack on Scientology started to happen. And it started heating up before I could get the movie done, the first volume. This is what they have been doing, all of this demonization campaign of Miscavige, this stuff that's been going on. And that show, The Path, that I've told you about, that's on Hulu, you can get it on torrents too. It's 100% modeled after Scientology. You know, even though the people that created the show, for legal reasons, of course, no, we didn't base it on Scientology. Yeah, right. Any idiot with 2 seconds of watching that fucking series can realize it's 100% about Scientology. The guy that, I mean, they've even got the Miscavige guy that even kind of looks like Miscavige. His voice is kind of like him. You can tell the guy studied Miscavige's fucking mannerisms and stuff. I mean, you really can. It's got fucking Jesse Pinkman in it from Breaking Bad, but and that's where they're going with. They're in season 2 now, and that's totally where they're going with this. Where this religion, Meyerism, in the show, they're totally doing that now in the currently in the second season, where the followers of the religion, you know, they're framing it like, okay, well, the people that were in charge of it were corrupt and stuff. Now we need to bring in the new guard to really, and the new guard will really bring out what the religion's truly supposed to be about, and we'll get those corrupted people out of there. That's why they've been doing this, ladies and gentlemen. They've had to publicly address and get the focus to be, you notice how the focus isn't on the important stuff like the Leah Remini stuff and all that she talked about and all this other, any of the movies they've made, from Going Clear to My Scientology movie. And they're almost like half-ass recruitment videos in a way. So there's no doubt that's what this has all been about. It's not about these people are not interested in getting the real truth like we've been documenting and putting in these films and continue to put in these films. They're not interested in that kind of truth. They're only interested in demonizing the current people in power so that the CIA can take over back control of Scientology and put a new face on it, put the fresh face of, hey, we're the new sign. You know, you ever watch the old shows? My favorite shows ever back in the 90s, Mr. Show with Bob and David, with Bob Odenkirk and David Cross. They had a skit on there called "It's the New KKK and we're totally hate free." It's like, it's a black guy and he's like, you know, it's hilarious because this is back in the 90s, so it's kind of a time and a place thing, some of the humor, but it was hilarious. It's hilarious because he's like, slackers, musicians, walk around all the time, lazy, don't need them. Don't need them. Tell you what we need to do. We need to send them up to Seattle, build a wall around Seattle. They can have that. It's a beautiful part of the I mean, this is like 20 years ago. Like, damn, you know, Trump built his wall and all this stuff. Now, here's this reverse. This is like 20 years ago. They were joking about, you know, Gen Xers and grungers being slackers. And here's this black guy. This is a new clan now, you know. And that's kind of what they're trying to do. They're trying, hey, it's the new KKK and we're totally hate free. And that's what, hey, look, it's Scientology. No, we ditched all those evil people and we ditched all the bad guys. Now we're here to bring you into the light and bring you under the power of Lord Xenu. And that's what they're doing. People are going to realize, and it's going to become very apparent very quickly, and they will spin it and they will take every bit of credit and they will say, yes, we've been right all along. And that's where they're heading to this, folks. That's what this is moving towards. That's what all of this stuff has all been about. And we talked about the Louis Farrakhan stuff last time. We talked about of course, he's going on the Trump, going on the Alex Jones show and promoting Trump before the elections, which was just, I mean, that just was out of left field for me. Just that alone to me seemed out of left field. That number one, that Farrakhan would be supporting it, would be giving his approval to anybody right wing, first off, but then also to be on the Alex Jones show. And you look at the stuff that Farrakhan has said in the past, and then, of course, like we show in the Spellcasters. And I talked about how, you know, the whole Nation of Islam was brought into Scientology, and with Louis Farrakhan, you know, talking about, as we show in the Spellcasters, was one of the things that we prove in the documentary, and one of the things I'll be talking about more in the future, is this idea of these thetans, these dead alien souls are actually demonic entities that you become more and more open to control by the more auditing sessions and whatnot that you have. It slowly opens up your subconscious to the point to where eventually this person is fully controlled by entities, even though your average person or anybody just looking at them wouldn't be able to know it and tell it on the surface. And I had talked about how they brought this up on, I think, the last episode of the Liam Ramini show. It was like a roundtable thing they had. They brought it up, and Mike Rinder said, well, I don't know how they're going to do that. I don't know how they figure they're going to do that, because Scientology says explicitly you can't be another religion like Islam and also be a Scientologist. And remember, I talked about that in the last show about basically Mike Rinder is not acknowledging, and they continue to do that. They continue to try to not acknowledge the free zoner thing. And as Mike Rinder in that show, as he's saying this, you know, well, I don't know how Nation of Islam is going to do that, because Scientology says you can't be. That's what the whole free zone thing is about. This is how people like Alex Jones and others can still call themselves, oh, I'm a Christian. Because if you're a free zoner, you don't have to disavow any of your religion. When he says that, they cut, when he says the thing about, well, I don't know how they're going to be in the Nation of Islam, be in Scientology, because Scientology doesn't allow that. They can do like a quick cut over to Leah Remini, and she's just sitting there stone-faced. She doesn't say anything. She has a strange look on her face. I caught this the first time I watched this episode, and I watched it again. And then they cut away to another topic. Well, now it's all come out why she had the fucking stone face when that was brought up. This actually, I guess, was exposed by Tony Ortega, who I believe is I believe he's controlled opposition for Scientology. I never had a problem with the guy till he attacked me unwarrantedly after I was on the UK television Channel 5 Conspiracy Files program, which is now on Netflix, by the way. Kind of cool that I'm on something that's on Netflix. That's pretty rad. I haven't picked up any chicks with it yet, though, but I think I will try. Hi, baby. Did you know I'm like on Netflix or something? You want to like do it? Go all butthead on him. But yeah, he just out of hand, I don't know, made some comment about me or something. I don't really care. I had never gone after the guy and kept quiet on him, but once he attacked me, I let it be known what I think about him. But anyway, he's got all kinds of ferrets and people inside of Scientology. It's now come out from this article from TonyOrtega.org. We have learned more about Scientology's relationship to the Nation of Islam and how that relationship got started. We got our hands on a document that provides some surprising perspective about who helped David Miscavige and Louis Farrakhan bring together their two odd organizations, supplying some of the effort and substantial amounts of money to bring Nation of Islam members into Dianetics counseling. Farrakhan, speaking at the Nation of Islam's annual Savior's Day celebration, mentioned his organization's relationship with Scientology, saying that he planned to stick by the church as it was being buried under negative press, and as Leah Remini, quote, went in hard against it on her A&E television program. But who was it supplying these substantial amounts of money to bring the Nation of Islam members into Dianetics counseling? Would you believe? It was none other than Leah Remini herself, ladies and gentlemen. I told you, I'll never forget it, man. This had to be 7 or 8 years ago. I've tried finding this again. Never been able to find it. Stuff just gets fucking scrubbed and erased, or winds up on some old GeoCities page. It gets fucking erased, deleted or something. But there was a list one time. It had known Hollywood actors and actresses who were either suspected to be or were known CIA assets. And one of them had Jennifer Garner. I've told y'all about her. She has done work in the CIA. Her father's in the CIA. She did videos and stuff for them for that show Alias, for the CIA, training videos and stuff as the character from Alias. George Clooney, of course, he's well known. And probably many, many more who will never even have hint that they are one. I bet there's a lot out there of those like that nobody even suspects. Kind of like Michael Richards from Seinfeld. He was always played such a goofy guy. Nobody expected that dude would be the most hardcore fucking Freemason there is. Like, he takes it seriously. And I remember saying on air, I remember laughing about it on air, going, Leah Remini, the fucking King of Queens chick? She's a known CIA ass. I mean, we're laughing about it, And then the more I got into the research, and the more, I started seeing stuff and all the connections. I mean, it's just unbelievable. According to Nation of Islam's official publication, The Final Call, Louis Farrakhan began having Nation of Islam members take courses in L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics on May 8, 2010. 2 weeks later, on May 23rd, an official Scientology commendation was awarded to Remini, giving her credit for helping to create, quote, one of the most important dissemination cycles of Scientology in history to get L. Ron Hubbard technology to black people. I mean, boom, they don't even hide it. Not only do they don't even hide it, they gave her a fucking award for it. So there you go, black people. If you didn't already feel like you were already under enough of fucking salt from... we all are. That's the thing. I mean, that's what people have got to get over. Black, white, brown, doesn't matter. We're all under attack by these motherfuckers. And it is about mind control, and it is about creating... They want to do, ladies and gentlemen, what they did with MK Ultra and the Manchurian candidates. I'm telling you, this is what they want to do to the whole world. And once they roll out phony disclosure and they get their stage alien invasion, people are going to be running in droves to Scientology, and it will become the predominant one world religion. And this has been the plan all along. The commendation was signed by two people most often associated with the relationship between the two groups, the Nation of Islam's minister, Tony Muhammad, and Scientology's Reverend Alfredi Johnson Jr. According to the document they signed, Leah was instrumental in forging the bond between the two churches by, in part, sponsoring courses for Tony Muhammad, in other words, paying for them, and for spending the money to help build the Inglewood Ideal Org, which opened in a prominent Los Angeles black neighborhood the next year in 2011. Leah has always had a huge affinity and desire to help black people throughout the world. The condemnation says, commendation, not condemnation, sorry. As a result of her help on this cycle, Minister Louis Farrakhan and all the top Nation of Islam execs are now on services. That's a direct quote from Scientology there. Her commendation and her award for bringing in the Nation of Islam. Let me read that quote for you again, this needs to sink in. As a result of Leah Remini's help on this cycle, Minister Louis Farrakhan and And all of the top Nation of Islam execs are now on services. That statement in Scientology terms, when they say that you're on services, means that they are Louis Farrakhan and all the top Nation of Islam execs are now fully going through Scientology auditing, even though if someone was to go up to Louis Farrakhan right now and say, "Are you a Scientologist?" Louis Farrakhan could say, "No, I'm absolutely not a Scientologist," and he would not be lying about that. At the same time, he wouldn't be telling the entire truth, because as we have right here, it says point blank, they are now on services. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the same thing. This is what I've been trying to get across to you about Alex Jones and Jim Mars and any of these other people whose name was on that CCHR, Center for Citizens Committee on Human Rights. You had George Norrie on that list. You had Michael Moore. I always wondered, there was, Alex Jones a long time ago had one of his films. He had this phony confrontation with Michael Moore in one of his movies, and I never understood that. It seemed like the whole thing seemed staged. It seemed it was tacked on, and I just didn't get why that was featured in this movie that he had it in. It all makes sense now. All that stuff makes sense now. It also makes sense as to why when Mike Render on the Leah Remini show was talking about, well, I don't know how Nation of Islam is going to become in Scientology, because Scientology has the rule that says you can't be a member of another religion simultaneously while being in Scientology. That's right. You can't unless you are one of these free zoners, which is what we were talking about in the last show. And again, I'm shooting to have Spellcasters Volume 2 out by July. There is some information I was going to, there's been so much that's happened. I mean, you got to remember, I put out the download, finished this movie back in August. So we're talking 3 months before the elections even. I mean, even a year before that, I was already finding all these connections to Jones and Russia Today and connections to Trump and Russia, but of course now they've created this, and this is all CIA. Don't fall into this phony bullshit they're trying to pitch to you and get you to buy into, that Trump or anybody else is getting to buy into, where now they're trying to act like, oh, the CIA is some one-sided organization. No, the CIA is running all of this stuff, left, right, and center. And they've now been able to take the fact that we've been slowly being sold out to Russia for many, many years, and turned it into a divide and conquer political left versus right bullshit thing, and using it now say, oh, well, if you say anything about Trump and Russia, that's just left-wing liberal media garbage bullshit. That information, that stuff was there long before Trump or the campaign, any of that stuff happened. It's been there for quite a long time. And there's just been so much that has occurred, and all this new information, the free zone stuff. I was going to try to put a little free zone thing and put it in there with the rest of the film, Volume 1. It's just not possible. It's not going to be possible, and it's going to push the movie too far, too long, which will then, force me to have to. I'm not going to do the fucking dual layer DVD thing again that I did with Lost Circuits 1. It was a nightmare. So, because of that, I'm going to be coming out with a separate film, the Spellcasters 1.5, before we come out with Volume 2. It'll be available. It'll be a download shop exclusive. It won't be available on discs or anything like that. This is going to be, full length. It'll be its own full length little film. But it won't take long to do. A week, 2 weeks, maybe shorter than that. I don't really know yet. But I'll have that out in the next week or two, and available to purchase. And then I'll continue work on Spellcasters Volume 2 in order to attempt to get that out by July. And then I'll be, again, we're in September is our, there's so much to tell you about. Okay, September is our 10-year anniversary. Shooting for Spellcasters 2 by July. Still waiting on artwork to be done for discs. Please be patient. Continue to be patient for that, for Spellcasters 1 for discs. If you've pre-ordered yours, please be patient. We're still waiting on the artwork to be done. I think Spellcasters 1 is going to be the last film I'm going to put out on discs. I'm not going to be doing discs anymore. It's too much additional cost. It's too much storage. It's just too much. And frankly, unless you're just in the Stone Age technologically, discs are almost pointless anymore. Hard media is on. But that said, I am going to be releasing a 10-year, I haven't announced this yet, a 10-year retrospective box set. We're going to be shooting for a September release on that to coincide with the 10-year anniversary of, because that's not only the 10-year anniversary of the show, it's also the 10-year anniversary of my filmmaking, because I released my first film, 9/11 New World Rising, in September of 2007. So, this is going to be, we're going to have lots of different packages on this. It's going to be all of my films together in one package. Everything all the way that I've released, all the way it'll be, including Spellcasters Volume 2. Now, when the Spellcaster Volume 2 is done, hopefully in July, it will be up and available in the download shop as Volume 1 is now. But we're not going to be doing individual discs for Volume 2, but you will be able to get Volume 2 of the Spellcasters on disc in the 10-year retrospective box set, which will contain all of my documentary films, the mini films, and all that stuff on disc as well. We're going to have a lot of different packages. We'll have something that'll be all the way down to like a bare bones package that we'll call just the facts package. It'll just be like, plain discs and manila envelope and white envelopes, bundled together to make it affordable, all the way up to deluxe, more deluxe packages and everything in between. But I'm excited about this. I'm excited about putting together. It's going to be awesome to have all my work collected in this massive, this thing will be probably, with all the stuff, by the time you get all the stuff in there, 20, 30 hours worth of fucking info and everything I've done for the past 10 years. It's just going to be nice to just have that. And then past that, I don't know. I may take a break from filmmaking for a while after Spellcasters 2 and after the box set is done. We'll just have to see. I don't know yet. I've got a couple more films on the back burner, but for right now, I just want to focus on the immediate stuff, which is getting all this stuff done, getting it out there, and getting it all, having the ability to keep all this going. That's the main thing. What else was going to tell you? Well, we're also going to have these very limited edition box sets. I don't know if you've ever seen the little Tourmaline Mojo bottles that I sell for Let There Be Rocks. Like these little glass bottles with a cork in them that have tourmaline crystals in them. They actually make these now that have USB sticks in them, and you can get custom logos made on them. So we'll have very small quantities of these, and they'll be pretty expensive. $120 maybe. I don't know. We'll see. But essentially what it'll be for, I think they're like $100 maybe. But you'll get it'll be like a little glass bottle, and it'll have a printing on the outside of the glass bottle that says the Josh Reeves 10-year video set or whatever. It'll have a cork in it with, I'll put some tourmaline crystals or whatever in there. And then you'll uncork it, and the cork has a USB stick on the end of it, and you'll put the cork in with the USB into your computer, and it'll have the entire collection of all my films there in this little collector's bottle. It's going to be awesome. So we got a lot of stuff planned for that for later in the year to coincide with the 10-year anniversary. And also, I'd mentioned a new show I'm going to be doing. I'm going to have a new show, podcast, YouTube video type thing. I'm not really sure how I'm going to do it yet. And it's going to be called Josh Watches. And it'll be Josh Watches ... and it'll be a movie, whatever it may be. And I'll let you guys, once we get going, send in your suggestions and picks. Basically, what it'll be is it's going to be kind of like a Mystery Science Theater type thing, except with me. And it'll be kind of like what I do with the book readings. You know how I read the books and I give my commentary and insert stuff. That's what this will be, except it'll be with movies. Not necessarily always, not everything I'm going to be doing all 100% of the time, folks. This stuff in the future is going to be all related to information and stuff, So I don't want to hear any bitching and pissing and moaning. I want to be upfront about the stuff is that I want to do some other things like my music show, which I've only done one episode of because I'm just too tied up and busy with other stuff to do anything else. But yeah, there will be some truth type stuff, I guess, in those things. But either way, it's going to be like a Mystery Science Theater type thing where I'll be watching a movie. I'll watch a movie. I'll pick a movie. Let's say like, anything, Knowing or something like that, whatever it may be. Pulp Fiction. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff out there. Who knows? Anyway, I'll watch a movie and I'll have I'll say, okay, we're starting the movie now, and you can start the movie. And you can also, while you're watching the movie, have the YouTube video up or the MP3 up. So you'll be able to, it's kind of like director's commentary / not director's commentary, because it won't be films that I directed. I will do a series of them with my films as well. But basically it's going to be me sitting there just kind of like we're hanging out, and like I'm going to be just like giving commentary and commenting on stuff. So you'll be able to like watch the movie at home and then play the track with me talking and turn the volume up and down. And anyway, I've done some testing of this already and tested and shown it. It's gonna be fucking fantastic. It's gonna be really great. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh gosh, what else did I have to talk about? Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the show, last time I talked about when I first found out about the free zone thing back in October, I brought up and mentioned, and I even said on that show, I said, "Oh, it's a bit odd," but now it's nobody really noticed it the first time. I did mention this back in October. Nobody really cared, but then I talked about the free zone on the last thing show, and people are now losing their grease. People are going fucking crazy. I don't want to be clear about this before I mention this, is that I'm not saying this as being accusatory, but I would be remiss in my duties as a researcher and a host and somebody who always lays it all out there to not mention this and talk about it being odd. But I've been getting hammered with people saying, don't you think it's a bit odd that Freeman has, his show and it still is, and some stuff's always been called the Free Zone and Free Man, and he doesn't tell people his real name and the rest of it, and he's been buddies with Alex Jones and been on stuff with Alex Jones before. I'm not saying this being accusatory. I see, because what's going to happen is, because I've already seen it happening, people are going to just go to Freeman and say that I accused him of being a Scientologist, because I have not accused him of being a Scientologist, but I can't sit here and say that, or disagree with the listeners out there who have pointed this out. I can't disagree and say, no, I don't think it's a bit weird and this, that, and the other. Especially in light of all the other, everything else, for that to be a coincidence in light of everything else, I don't know, man. It does bring up questions. But then again, I also feel for him, because I know that just like my name, the Global Reality Radio Network, after the Flat Earth thing came out, everybody was attacking me, saying you need to change the name of your fucking radio show because it's not a globe anymore. Like, all of a sudden, because you just now found out about the Flat Earth theory, that all of a sudden my name's not valid anymore. Well, whatever. Global is still in the term, the way that we use it anyway. As far as like global consciousness or global awakening, it's used in that terminology as, being planetary or something. Anyway, it has nothing to do. The title of, that's when it made no sense to me. The title of my show had nothing to do with the planet being a sphere or globe, flat or square or triangle or anything else. It has nothing to do with that. But when I first got on the air, every single show and every single thing was all about America, this, America, that, America, America, America. And I'm going, wait a minute, man. This shit is not just happening just in America or affecting only people in America. This thing is happening around the globe, around the planet. It affects everybody. This reality of control and the lies affects everyone on this planet. And unless we are trying to represent all of humanity, then we are short-sighting not only ourselves, but everyone else that lives on this earth. That was the whole reason behind my global reality thing. So, I get that, but it's also, I think about that thing that that event that I told you about with Jones, that I told you Jim Mars was at too, the one where I had to run in with Jones and that whole thing. Well, I didn't even dawn on me till everybody was bringing up. I had forgot about it, but Freeman was there too. That was the first time I met Freeman. And I noticed when I was on his show, I don't know, man. Again, I'm not trying to attack the guy, but since people have brought this up to me, been asking me, it has triggered. I didn't really think about it, honestly. I mentioned it. I just said back in October when I first found out about the free zone thing, I said, oh, that's a little odd. That isn't Freeman's show called the free zone? I kind of said it like that and just kind of went on. But as I had mentioned it last time, more people have been asking me about it. And I know somebody, I think, even asked Freeman about it on his Facebook page. I don't think he responded. He ignored it. But it did get me thinking about some, little strange things like that. Like I mentioned this when I was on his show last year. When I first met him, he had on, he had a 32nd degree Freemason ring on that he said was his dad's. Freeman claims that his dad was a 32nd degree Freemason who chased UFOs for the FBI. And when I brought this up on his show, he seemed kind of uncomfortable about me bringing that up. I don't know if he probably has tried to downplay that or hide that. I don't know. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's trying to hide the fact that he used to openly talk about it. I don't know if he's changed his tune, but he kind of seemed like he got uncomfortable about it. But yeah, when I went to go on his show, we talked a little bit beforehand and stuff, and I had a pretty good idea what we were going to talk about. The idea was to talk about the Spellcaster stuff in the first hour and the Lost Secret stuff in the second hour. And right out of the gates in the first hour, okay, here's our guest, Josh Reeves. Josh, is Alex Jones controlled by demons? Just right out of the gates, no context. I have to say, I was jarred by that, and in retrospect, a little offended by it. I kind of just rolled with it at the time. But honestly, I felt like that's just instantaneous in some people's minds is automatically, immediately going to make people turn off. I would. Because you're not giving people the context. Context is key. Context is everything. But if you have a guest, if you bring a guest on your show and you don't give them any context or say, oh, well, because he watched the film, in the film, he talks about this and that and Scientology and Thetans and L. Ron Hubbard's own son connecting, black magic to this, and Farrakhan talking about demons coming out of him when he did Scientology auditing, But he just immediately right out of the gates, that seemed odd to me. I don't know, weird stuff like he's asked me for my phone number before. I feel weird about giving that out to people. Ask me for my address to send me some video footage. Just weird little things, these little things that happen sometimes, I, you know, I'm going to leave it up to the audience. I'm going to let you all decide. I'm not going to attack Freeman and come right out and say I think he's a Scientologist, because I don't think he's a Scientologist. But I can't argue the fact that the whole free zone thing, it just seems like too big of a coincidence. And also the fact that the whole free zone thing is not something that's talked about a lot, even by people who are supposed researchers into Scientology. It's just not discussed or brought up. And as I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, I found out about it, just by chance and by accident from this book that I was going to read, and then come to find out, here's this guy, and he's, associated with the Illuminati and free zoners and the rest of it. So, yeah, I'm not going to be accusatory, and I'm not going to say that I think he's a Scientologist or anything. But I also will say that questions about that are warranted. It just seems, in light of everything else, to be too big of a coincidence to me. This stuff is all encompassing and all reaching, folks, and I just could never get, when I first started exposing the CMP stuff, why people were getting so scared. I just didn't get it at first. Like, really scared. I mean, you would see people get these really, really extreme reactions when you would bring it up. But then again, somebody like Jerome Corsi, I confronted him about it in 2008, and he was all gung-ho about it. Yeah, I'm a member, sure. And then Dr. Michael Kaufman, who Alex Jones had in his film Endgame, who was the president of the Council for National Policy. Jones tried to play that off. Then he had, in his Endgame 1.5, had footage of Phil Schlafly speaking at a Council for National Policy meeting, tried to play that off and say it was a clip that he got from YouTube. Right. So you had you could have chosen from literally 1,000 different clips, and I know there are tons out there because I've got clips of Phil Schlafly to put in my films before, so I know what's out there. Of all the clips, he just randomly happened to choose one where she just happened to be speaking at a CMP meeting in front of a CMP podium. So I was, at first, when I first started exposing in the CMP and made the first Secret Right film in 2009, the first, and up to this point, only full-length film ever made on the Council for National Policy. I made the only film, first and only film made on the Council for National Policy. I made the first and only film on the rock wall, and I made the first and only film detailing the connections of Scientology, MK Ultra, and the Truth Movement, and the rest of it. So I'm quite happy and proud of the work we've done here, and look forward to getting out this 10-year anniversary box set. It really is hard to wrap your mind around this stuff, folks. But the fact of the matter is, everything that we've learned about this, about all of this stuff in the whole conspiracy realm, research realm, truth realm, whatever you want to call it, it's all really been about posing as the truth while still concealing the truth to keep their agenda being able to be achieved. That's what it is. Okay, I'm beat. I probably got more to talk about, more to mention, but I'm just out of gas. I'm exhausted. I've been working like a dog, and I haven't even told you to support our work yet. Listen, we have weekly fundraising goals now, as well as our monthly fundraising goals to keep the operating costs covered and paid, and it's going to be essential between now and July that we reach 100% of our goals every month, because I'm going to be working hard to get all these films and boxes and all this stuff out. And we're going to need your support now more than ever, folks, especially as we're going to be going over the target and taking a lot more flack, especially with the stuff we're going to be revealing in Volume 2 of this. So thank you very much to everybody out there who has supported our work and continues to support our work and donate. I don't have any set figures this week for a fundraising goal. I'd really just like anything that you can to be directed at our Spellcasters Volume 2 fundraiser, which we don't have a whole lot left on to go. If we could reach that whole goal, that would really, really put us far ahead. So just any contributions, large or small, that you can put towards the Spellcaster Volume 2 fundraiser. You can find the banner for that on our Facebook pages, at my website, in the section of this video on YouTube. You can find all there. And then next week will be our fundraising week for the operating costs. So just for now, this week, get yourself a membership to the archives. Get yourself some downloads from the download shop. If you want to contribute using a credit card, debit card, you can use the donate button at my website. And you can also have a monthly donation subscription. Now, this is separate from the archive subscriptions. You can go and scroll down on the right-hand side of the page, and you can set a monthly amount that will come out of your bank account every month. You can set any amount you want from that, from $20, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, whatever you want to do. And then if you want to be a monthly contributor to our broadcast, you don't have to worry about coming back every month to contribute. You can just have a set amount that'll automatically be donated every month on the same day, and then you can cancel that at any time. So, however you can support our work, theglobalreality.com. Go and do it, folks. We'll see you soon. Take care.